Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's afternoon, right? Are you all fired up? That's great. Can you all join me in welcoming up on this stage our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful youth ambassadors? Come on up. So the youth ambassadors and I wanted to give you all some parting words, but before I do that, I want to have us all give a round of applause to Ellen, Dr. Vinnie Pompey, and all of the HRC staff who make this incredible conference possible. Please also join me in giving a round of applause to the conference center and catering and beverage staff here at the Hilton who worked round the clock to ensure this was a safe and welcoming space. And last, but certainly not least, I want to extend my deepest thanks to all of you. Not just for joining us this weekend, but also for the work you do every day for LGBTQ youth in schools, at home, and in our communities across the country. Time to Thrive is always an inspiring experience, empowering each of us with tools, information, and relationships necessary to support one another in both the best of times and, even more importantly, in trying moments. As educators, social workers, healthcare professionals, students, parents, and allies, each and every one of you are on the front lines of change. You are doing the hard work of opening hearts and changing minds. You're making our schools more welcoming, our hospitals safer, our faith communities more supportive, and our workplaces more inclusive. And I know it can get exhausting. It can be demoralizing at times, particularly after the last year. And as we leave this space, this safe and inclusive space, to head back into a world that so often seems in chaos, where hate and bigotry has been inflamed and emboldened, it's easy to lose sight of the horizon. But as dark as this moment in our country can seem, we are already seeing the first glimmer of a new day dawning. We see it in the birth of a new generation of activists of every age in every corner of this country. Young people like the youth ambassadors standing right behind me. Young people like Gavin Grimm, who lead us forward from a place of intersectionality, authenticity, and urgency. Young people like the students in the audience today, and I said this last year, but I think it's so important to note, which is that every time a young person speaks, every time they step forward and tell their stories and talk about what we need in this country, young people, when they do that, they speak from a place of history. And not the history of the past, but the history that remains to be written. Because young people will be the ones that write the history books of tomorrow. They will be the ones who get to decide who was right and who was wrong in this moment, and elected officials, they know that. And so every time a young person speaks, they speak with that gravity in their voice, in the scariest of spaces to the safest places. We see youth, even in the face of tragedy, muster the courage to continue to move forward. Young people like the students in Parkland who are already organizing after last week's shooting. On March 14th, they've organized a day of action. And on April 20th, the anniversary of Columbine, our presenting sponsors, the NEA, are joining with teachers and students for a second day of action so that we can finally address the scourge of gun violence plaguing America today. We see the power of our voices in the growing alliance of allies who not only welcome an LGBTQ loved one with broad smiles and open arms, but who understand the enduring truth that acceptance requires support. My dad loves to say that if everyone has just a little bit of courage, then no one has to be a hero. And that is how change has always come. Not from any particular leader, not from any single politician, but from the collective wave of individual acts of quiet courage and radical compassion. This is a moment of choosing for our country and for each and every one of us. We have been called to a righteous cause. And it's not just our nation's children who are watching us. It's also posterity, the countless generations for whom this moment, this time right now, is a chapter in their history books of tomorrow. And while every chapter may be influenced by politicians and presidents, we know that in the end, they are written by each and every one of us, by the decisions each one of us make every single day to either be silent in the face of prejudice or persecution, or to speak out, to fight back, and to bend the arc of the moral universe just a little bit more towards justice. Just 10 years ago, growing up as a young transgender teen stuck in the closet, the idea of both living my truth and pursuing my dreams seemed impossible. It was so incomprehensible that those words together almost wouldn't make sense to me. But since coming out, I've been fortunate enough to see that change is and always will be possible. Ellen, Vinny, and I get to see it every day in our job with HRC. I see it in the countless young transgender youth, sometimes 8, 9, 10 years old, who I get to meet across the country. Transgender youth like Libby, Max, and Marilyn, who's here today, who I witnessed march into the Texas state capitol, with their heads held high to demand dignity and justice, holding in one hand the knowledge of all of the hate that exists in this world, but holding in the other the knowledge that their identities are worth celebrating and that their voices matter. I see it in the 12-year-old transgender girl named Stella, who, when I met her and asked her what she wants to be when she grows up, she declared without any hesitation the first transgender president. What once seemed impossible, that we could live authentically and pursue our dreams, is now very real to Stella. The mere fact that youth like Stella exists today demonstrates how far we've come. We have transformed impossibility into possibility into reality. We have seen that change is always possible. A few days ago, I checked in on Stella, given how troubling the news is, and her mom responded by saying, "You know, each time a new attack by this president happens, it only strengthens Stella's resolve to kick some butt." And it's a family affair. And that resolve, she didn't actually use the word butt, she used a different word. That resolve, that unending hope, that amazing grace, that is the story of the last year. That no presidency can silence our voices or halt the momentum of our movement. And so for Stella and Libby and Max and Marilyn and all of these youth behind me, let us keep up the fight. Let us meet their dreams with our own determination, their perseverance with our own persistence. Let us reclaim the soul and story of America from those who wish to roll back the clock on our progress. And finally build a world where no child must be forced to defend their dignity or give up on their dreams. And when that day comes, it will be because of advocates and activists who dreamed of a different world. It'll be because of LGBTQ people who marched and fought for a better tomorrow. It will be because of allies who stood up or spoke out. It will be because of all of us. So thank you all very much. It is an honor to be with you today. It's an honor to be with you at this conference, and it's a privilege to be with you in this fight. Take care, everyone.